Today, I am thrilled to have this group of panelists assembled. Let me introduce them, and then I want to get right into the discussion because we have a lot to discuss today. We've got a very incredible panel that represents multiple areas of the education world. We're going to start off with Miss Ashley Wright, born and raised in Houston, Texas. Ashley went through undergraduate studies at Sam Houston, graduate studies, as well as graduate studies as a professional school counselor and licensed professional counselor. She currently serves as an elementary school counselor in Conroe ISD at Lucille J. Bradley Elementary in Texas. She's been an educator for the past 13 years and a school counselor for the past 4. Ashley teaches students to accept diversity, increase their self-esteem, build character, and maintain resilience. Ashley continues to implement a diverse, comprehensive counseling program that is dedicated to meeting the needs of her students, staff, and community. These includes weekly counseling sessions, student leadership opportunities, parent education shows, and student achievement awards. She brings enthusiasm, campus engagement throughout the entire school year, and is an incredible advocate for school counseling. She's presented several national webinars with the WhyTry program and Region 4 Education Center with implementation ideas, tools, and strategies to increase student attendance and engagement and school counselor self-care. Overall, Ashley continues to influence other professional school counselors in their role and strives to create change in our education system. Welcome, Ashley. So Ashley, I think you hold the distinct honor of being, I think you've been our most frequent guest panelist. Is this number 4 for you or number 3?
I believe it is number 3. Yes.
Well, congratulations. We're thrilled to have you back because you're such a great resource for ideas. Next, we have Miss Jamilah A. Hud-Kirk. Jamilah, also known as Principal Captain Kirk, has served as an educator for over 23 years, currently serves as an elementary principal in one of the largest urban school districts in Metro Atlanta for the past 12 years. As a school leader, she focuses on creating a culture of high performance, impacting teachers, instructional practices that are innovative, culturally relevant, and aligned with student achievement best practices. Growing up in a household where her parents were active in the civil rights movement and where the importance of building strong communities were stressed, she continues to strive to create conditions inside and outside of the school that impact change and opportunity of our children. Believes passionately that education can positively affect communities, transform lives, and shape new visions for leading and learning in a globally competitive world. Started off as a classroom teacher and is currently a principal. She is also the CEO and founder of PCK Consulting, as well as best-selling author. Congratulations. Her book, Leading with Balance. Did I get that name right? Correct. You can find that on Amazon. We'll link that later. And then I do want to include this. She considers her greatest accomplishment to be a wife of 20 years, to her husband and mother to 4 wonderful boys and 1 girl. Welcome, welcome. Jamilah, we are so thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so fortunate. Thank you for having me.
Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Chris Eady. Chris is an award-winning high school business teacher with nearly 30 years experience and a passion for student engagement and school connectedness. He's a perpetual student favorite and has received many recognitions from both his students and his peers. He has been named Teacher of the Year. He has the receipt of the Golden Apple Award for Educational Excellence and has received the Most Influential Teacher Award. Along with his many years as a teacher, Chris has worked as a teaching specialist in interdisciplinary learning and has been a curriculum developer in applied technology. He's been an instructor in digital media, web development, marketing, and economics, and has served as the business department chair from 2002 to present. He currently serves as the Utah DECA board president, has served as the Utah DECA board president and was named the Utah DECA advisor of the year. Chris is a high school teacher at Provo High School. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Excited to be here as well.
And then I am Jason Johnson. I am the lucky individual that gets to moderate this. Those of that have been on before, you know my deal. I'm a school psychologist, came over to the WhyTry organization about 6 years ago. And I oversee research development and the training that we do, and love the opportunity that I get to talk with equally passionate educators and mental health professionals throughout the country about these really important topics. And so I'm thrilled. And this is an absolute all-star panel that we have today. So with that, I want to get right into it. I want to get right into the discussion. I'm going to take the spotlight off of everybody so that we can keep it just on whoever's speaking. And I want to start the discussion just with a little introductory question. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what your role is and what your primary focus has been in preparing to return for the upcoming school year in this new normal as we're describing it. And let's go Chris, Ashley, and then Jamilah.
Okay, I teach business and IT and to a very diverse population at Provo High School in Utah. And this last year was definitely challenging to try to get comfort zones to kind of drop so that I could connect with the students. One, because there wasn't as much in-person time. Another, because the facial body language was limited with masks. And as a result, I felt like good feedback was kind of taking a hit. And especially like with students that compete, they had a video compete rather than in-person compete in terms of presentations. And surprisingly, there was a big difference in terms of, or at least what we found. So this year, I'm simply plan to use pre-COVID connecting methods that I've used, mixed with a number of ones that I kind of had to adjust during this last year, and found that they were really helpful and healthy as well. And I'll probably mention a few later on.
Awesome, thank you. Ashley.
I would say, as you know, I'm a school counselor, so I know the biggest thing, just kudos, I know my principal is watching, Dr. Christine Butler. Our theme for this year is really back to our roots, really getting to the foundation of the what, the why, the how of maintaining and sustaining relationships with our kids. So if I could sum it up in one word, I would say more so focusing on connecting with students academically, socially, behaviorally, because just like Chris said, knowing from where they've been we can't change the past. It happened, it is, a lot of people say it is what it is, right? But a lot of things happened last year and a lot of things are still happening. So right now, it's like, even if we feel like we were, at the bottom, well, the only position is just to go up. So we have to move forward. So we want to focus on this year, just connecting, and not only with our students, but connecting with our parents as well. Parents and students and staff all have to feel emotionally, academically safe, emotionally safe, socially safe. So really kind of reestablishing, reaffirming those relationships and even inviting those, from a diverse perspective.
That's great.
Awesome, thank you so much. Jamilah.
So thank you once again for having me. I'm an elementary principal in Clayton County Public Schools here in Georgia at Fountain Elementary School, home of the Bears. And our focus in our district really has been about building relationships. Many of our parents will be returning for the first time since last March. Although we opened our district in the spring, you had the option of coming in the building in April. And so for many of our parents and families, especially like our kindergarten students who are now first graders, they've never even stepped in the building. And so part of my role as a principal is, one, setting the expectations and really communicating the role, the procedures, the protocols, because that's important. People want to know, if I send my child to school, are they going to be safe? What protocols are put in place? Building relationships, right? Establishing and reconnecting with those families who we were having difficult time getting connected to during the virtual environment, but also reconnecting with those parents and, assuring them that we are business as usual in terms of ensuring that their child will be successful. But at the same time, at our school this year, our theme is reimagining Fountain Elementary School and cultivating the genius of our students, of our scholars. And so, although we know there were a lot of things that were not working, there were a lot of things that did work, but we also know that based on the pandemic, we were able to do things we didn't think that were unimaginable. And now it has opened up a whole new light of things that are possible. And so how can you go back to doing things business as usual when you know there's so much more that you can do? And so, like Ashley said, it's also bringing in the community. Really, we spend a lot of time this summer reconnecting with community members and partners and identifying how we can support our families moving forward, whether it's through weekend bags or uniforms or school supplies, so that when scholars walk into the building, they have everything that they need. Because the truth of the matter is, some parents lost jobs, right? So they may not be able to get those uniforms or school supplies. So we have to reconnect and reestablish that connectedness with everyone so that we can support our scholars. So my role is to not only communicate that, but to model that and to have that expectation that moving forward, we're here to, have rigor, relevance, and relationships in our instruction, in our classrooms and schools. So that's been my role thus far, as we have welcomed our teachers back this week, and we'll be welcoming our students back next week.
Awesome. I love that. Was the 3 R's rigor, relevance, and relationships?
That is correct.
I'm trying to take notes rapidly because I always get so many good ideas out of this. That all of your answers, I think, really lead into where I want to go with the discussion. So right now, the big terms that we're hearing throughout the whole country is that, like, the concept of re-engagement and thriving and connecting. And a lot of times these are big terms that people agree with, but don't necessarily know where to start or know what the vehicle is. I want to focus in on the idea of connectedness for a minute, because right now that's a concept that I think a lot of people are looking at as going to be really helpful in assisting kids in their return, in that re-engagement piece. Just to put us all on the same page, the common definition for school connectedness is this: it's the belief held by students that adults and peers in the school care about their learning as well as about them as individuals. And then typically connected schools become places where students are more likely to engage in healthy behaviors and succeed academically because they feel connected to the schools. So I want to throw out to you, in your opinion, what is the key to creating a connected school? And let's start with Ashley this time. Let's go Ashley, Jamilah, then Chris.
I feel like when we talk about school connectedness, first and foremost, obviously the school is basically on that pedestal to provide a safe learning environment that most others probably maybe are not able to do. That's the gift and beauty of being an educator, right? We possess so much power, and we have all of our students 8 hours of the day. So I feel that when we invite students inside of our campuses and we create a cohesive atmosphere for them, far as students and staff, that's only one piece. When students view the parents on the same team as the teachers being on the same team, as the principal being on the same team, and they see their community, that's where that whole keyword village comes from, right? Because it does take a village to raise a child, and everybody is connected. We may not disagree, but when we open the playing field, when we seek to understand and not necessarily to react, and even if we still feel uncomfortable with certain things, but we feel vulnerable enough to ask for help and to seek support, that's when students thrive, right? Because we're always talking about, yeah, we're rebuilding a generation and, the future is theirs, but we have to model that. So the school, yes, it starts with us, right? But once it starts with us, we have to teach, we have to model, and we have to show our parents, like, hey, I know that this may be different from you. I know that some of, the situations, whether it's academic, whether, it's behavioral, it just may sound crazy, or maybe you don't agree, but I am on your team. And so once we get that buy-in from the parent, like, hey, I don't agree with every teacher. I may not, I have my likes and dislikes. We're human. When we see each other unlimited potential, that's where we thrive. That's where kids are watching, they're observing. It doesn't matter if they're from elementary, and I know that, I'm an elementary school counselor, but all of these kids, even from high school, they're watching, right? Because especially because society's on fire right now, so everything's visible all the time, whether it's through social media, whether it's at home, whether it's at school. So I feel that the safest place, right, for 8 hours of the day, if they're in our presence, right, we have such an impact. And so there's such an influence with that. And so when we're able to maintain those relationships and know how to do it, whether through our SEL, whether it's through those crucial conversations, as my AP would say, you know, really having those vulnerable moments where maybe I don't know how to reach this kid, or I don't know how to talk to this parent, or this really upset me, and we're able to connect and be vulnerable and talk to each other, knowing that we're on the same team. That's how students thrive. That's how schools thrive. But, you know, and that's my prerogative as far as, you know, how we can, you know, establish and maintain school connectedness.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love that we're really fortunate. We're getting the perspective of a counselor, a teacher, and an administrator here all at once. So let's throw over to Jamilah next. Jamilah, tell us a little bit about what you think the key to creating a connected school is.
So from the leadership lens, the first and foremost key for me is making sure you have the right people on the bus, right? And so you have to be really, really intentional about who you have in your organization, you know, that bubble, those teachers, because the reality is, as the administrator, I can't be and see everything. I have to rely on the people in which I have entrusted with our scholars. And so that's the first and foremost. The second thing is I have to model what I expect, and I have to inspect what I expect, and I have to provide the tools in which to do that. I think sometimes we assume that adults come in with the necessary tools, and that's not always the case, because we have our own mental models. We come with our own baggage or own experiences, and based upon how we went to school or how we were treated, sometimes we bring that into the school, into the classrooms. And so we have to be really intentional as leaders to provide that professional learning or support and guiding other adults on how to be nurturing adults. And then also high expectations, because yes, I am at a Title I school, 100% Title I school, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to lower my expectations for learning, right? I can be empathetic to the realities that my students go through, but when they come in this building, I still have high expectations for you. And I think students appreciate that, right? Because if I have high expectations for you, that means that I have tapped into and I know what your needs are, whether it's through surveys, whether it's through conversations, whether it's through talking with parents. That's really key. One of the key things we did as a staff this year, and we do every year, but we were really intentional this year, every teacher had to reach out to their to the families and introduce themselves and to answer any questions prior to the meet and greet. This builds relationships. Then parents have an opportunity to ask those questions, and then, you know, extending that throughout the school year, not just when something bad is going on, but when I want to, you know, praise a student, or I just want to check in when a child is absent more than 2 days, and calling the parents, say, hey, I'm just checking on you. We miss you today. How is everything going? And building those relationships in the classroom. So as a leader, that's one thing that I do. And then again, modeling, and then having opportunities during professional learning through the year to make sure that we're incorporating social emotional learning practices in the classroom throughout our content areas, not just a period of the day, but throughout, and that we're building relationships. And then in the classroom, that you are building a sense of community. Are you having class meetings? Do students have choice? You know, do they have choice? Do they have buy-in? One of the things I've told my staff, and I've told them in the past, you know, we can no longer expect students just to do what we want them to do just because they're in front of us and we're the teachers. How are we engaging them in this learning process? How are we holding them accountable for their own learning? All those things have to take place. And think of yourself as an adult. Think of yourself as a parent. I think all the time, how would I want my students to be engaged in a school? And that's the lens that I use. And although I'm a principal and I'm a leader, I have to keep that parent lens on, because I know that, you know, local parentis, these are my scholars, my children, when they're in this building, and I want them to have every opportunity that my own children have. And so how can I get that? And how can I get the best out of them, out of my teachers? I hold the community accountable. I hold, you know, parents accountable. How do the community that's immediately surrounding us? We can't just be this little school in the middle of a neighborhood. How are you pouring into this? The reality is, at some point, they're going to be taking care of us. And I don't know about you, but I want, you know, competent people taking care and making decisions for me when I can't do it for myself. And so it starts with me as a leader. So those are just a few things that, you know, I look at when you're trying to create that connectedness. You have to be very intentional about it. It can't be like, this is what we do, but what does it look like? And does everyone know what that looks like? Or is it just in my head? It can't just be in Captain Kirk's head. It has to be something that everyone lives and breathes and understands and knows what to do without me having to tell them what to do.
Awesome. I love it. And it lines up so nicely with the typical recommended trauma-informed models that we're understanding better now, that concept of voice and choice, but also that concept of safety. And I really believe when we do that right, just like you said, then we can still maintain a level of expectation and accountability. We don't have to give that piece up when we set the right foundation. Chris, I'd love to hear from you. And I love your perspective on this because I think you represent both the a little bit of the micro and the macro level on this. And I think it's really important that our micro environments mirror our macro environments. And so I was wondering, what ideas could you share with us about the keys to creating either a connected school, or if you want to speak on a connected classroom, I think that's a really interesting concept as well.
Yeah, so first of all, I love administrators and counselors at our school because, like, once again, they're doing things that maybe I'm not capable of, as well as I'm appreciative of for the students and for the faculty. And if you were to walk into my classroom, you would be celebrated, and that's on purpose. But let me just say briefly, I learned early on that my learning and recall was tied to how much I liked a class or liked a teacher, just naturally. And if I liked both, my learning and recall was much, much better. Also, I think it's interesting how you don't remember what you did 2 or 3 weekends ago, but you do remember the camp out from 2 or 3 years ago, and you remember the details that seem almost insignificant, like where the tent was, where the chairs were, where the how close the river was. You remember details from 2 or 3 years ago so well that I use those 2 pieces of information to build what I consider to be kind of a unique classroom experience, where there's kind of I wonder what's going to happen next. Maybe I seem a little goofy in some of the strategies I might share later, but I believe it should be unique. It should be playful, meaning many smile moments that should happen. And it can often lead to some inspiring moments too. It doesn't maybe always, but can. And I found that if I have it unique, playful, and sometimes inspiring, learning becomes more effortless. And what I've discovered is that my first effort from before I even start interacting with the students, the first thing that happens in my classroom is that I am focused on connecting first. And if I give time and energy to that, it takes much less time to learn the things that we plan to learn that day. So that's kind of maybe how I would kind of introduce maybe some of the methods that I found as a teacher to be helpful for students that are easy and difficult. Let's say it that way. They tend to work similarly. I've tried, I guess we would say, through trial and error.
Awesome. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Jason, I love, first of all, I love Mr. E. I really do. And blessings to you, because I love, sometimes people misconstrue just, connecting with kids. And I was having this conversation with my administration team, connecting with kids and building relationships as that whole, like, I gotta be mushy, touchy feeling. And it's not that. It's just literally for what you said. I see you. You are here. You are in my classroom. I'm glad that you're here, and I see you. And I feel like when kids are validated and they feel like they're seen individually and respected and valued, and it's not even just you, right? We need to teach kids how to be connected among themselves as well. So I think it's powerful, like you said, like just those small moments where it's okay to be positive. And I love how, Chris said it, towards the end, like, he's doing all the teaching, it becomes easier, and more frequent and with ease and with comfort, and they can remember content and, relevance and all of those things. But that's so important that you, have that positive atmosphere in your building. So I feel like, I just feel like sometimes it's the how, because in our heads, sometimes we feel like, oh, well, I've got to, do this and be all mushy. And it's really not that. So.
Thank you. That's a perfect lead in to where I want to go. So from the WhyTry perspective, at the core of our model, so we have like our whole WhyTry approach. And I'm really fortunate that I get to train people on this on a weekly basis throughout the country. And we always say that the X factor to the WhyTry approach is the relationship. And one thing I always stress with educators, I've never had an educator disagree with me on the importance of the relationship. Like, it's a thing that we have universal agreement on. Where I think we can get into trouble a little bit is I think we kind of take for granted sometimes our own ability with it. And we have so many distractions as educators. I always really try to stress that we have to be just as intentional with our relationship building as we do like with our lesson plan. So I tell people, when you're building an SEL lesson plan, you should build in specific relationship building strategies as part of your lesson plan. Because if we're not intentional with it, we will have a distraction every day. It's guaranteed some distraction will come up. And then we may not get to that thing if we haven't built that specific strategy in. And so when we're intentional, I think it really, like Mr. Edie said, it unlocks that ability to connect, where it starts to become, the teaching can become a little bit more effortless. So with that, that's a long setup for my question. I've heard you all talk about the importance of relationships. And like I said, I think it's something that's universally agreed upon. What are your thoughts on how relationships impact school connectedness, and what can we be doing to improve both building and sustaining? That's a key piece. And I think it was Ashley brought it up in our discussion before we had this meeting, or this webinar. We need to focus as much on sustaining relationships as building. How do we stay on top of that? Let's go Jamilah, then Chris, and then Ashley. Give us your insight on relationships and connectedness.
Well, it goes back to what you said, being intentional, but also being present. I think sometimes from the leadership lens, we can get so busy with everything, right? Because the truth of the matter is, although we delegate roles, at the end of the day, it falls right back on the principal. If something goes wrong or goes right, the principal is the one in front. And so oftentimes we have to delegate because we can't do everything. But one of the things that I learned, and probably learned more so last year, being because we were 100% virtual up until April, the elementary schools, and being present, right? So even something as simple as someone walking to your office and you're busy doing something, and although you have a deadline, but you're trying to multitask, right? Because we multitask all the time, but then just stopping and being present for the adult, present for the family, present for the student. So that's one thing for me that I tend to work on more, is being, even as a mother, being present as a mother, as a wife, because you can't really talk about your role in school without talking about your personal. If you're not really connected with both entities, then how truly connected are you, right? And so, and is it genuine? And so I really try to work on myself as a leader as being connected to all relationships in my life, because I truly believe that those relationships influence how you show up in home, and how what you do in home shows up in your work. So that's one thing. And I think that sometimes we don't talk about that piece. It does show up in both places, and that's for anyone. Same thing for students, right? They come to school and they bring things from home, and it has nothing to do with the teacher or with the classroom, but they brought it from home. But if we don't stop and be present and be intentional to find out what's going on, we could automatically take it to offense to it, right? We get defensive because the child acted out and they did something, but it really wasn't about you. It was something that happened at home. So I think one of the things that we really have to do is really examine our own relationships altogether, in school and in home. That's number one. Being intentional, being present, and then also asking for help, because sometimes you don't know it all, right? Even as leaders, we are expected to know it all or to know a lot. And then people respect you more when you say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to either find out, or I'm going to tap into my counselor, Ashley, and Ashley is my expert, because I'm the first to say, my bookkeeper runs the school, right? Because she's the keeper of the money. So, affirming other people, affirming their roles in this big picture, and affirming how important their role is for the success of the entire organization. So the building relationship piece is really, really key. And see, people look at what you do more so than what you say, right? Or they actually look at both, because they want to say, well, like, I could be on this live saying all these things, but the people who are here for me or in my organization can say, if they can't say, she really does that, then what would be the point, right? Luckily, the people who are on can say she does what she's saying she's doing, right? So you have to show up, and you have to put action behind your words. So being intentional, being present, and then again, giving the tools, supporting other people. Because again, we can't put our template on other people, and we have to be in a place of support. And I'm a true believer that I will support you and I will give you the tools and do as much as I can. But I'm also the person that will say, if this is not the right fit and organization for you, and you cannot support our scholars the way they need to be, and you can't show up for them the way they need you to show up, then this might not be the place. So sometimes it also means understanding that too, that not every organization is for everyone, and everyone has a season and a time. But I do as much as possible to support you and give you the tools that you can. But I'm also, like someone mentioned earlier, those courageous conversations. You have to be courageous enough to have those conversations, like, you know what? Or to call people out, right? And say, I noticed this. This is what I noticed is going on. Let's talk about it. How can I support you in doing so? Do you want support in doing so? So that connectedness means a lot. And then showing parents the tools. One of the things that we do with using our parent liaison, our parent workshops, we have every week different types of workshops, but also giving parents the tools, because sometimes parents don't know. You know, we only know what we grew up having ourselves. And so when you know better, you do better. And so having those tools, and then again, once again, leveraging the community and partnerships to provide that support, so that people are affirmed and they know that you care. Because one thing I learned when I started having conversations with parents about I'm a parent, and during a virtual environment, because it was hard. Like, I'm a leader leading an entire school. I have my 3-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 18-year-old, my middle school. Like, I'm trying to figure it all out like you as well. And when I started having those conversations about, look, I know it's hard, let's figure this out together, people, that connectedness just organically started to flourish. And sometimes people just want to know that you care and that you can relate. And so that is a big piece as well. They don't want you coming down and talking down on them. They want to know, can you understand? And even if I cannot, I'm going to figure out a way to help you get to where you want to be.
Awesome. Thank you. So good. I have thoughts, but I'll come back to them. Let's hear from Chris.
So I feel that the more connected, because my part's the classroom, the more connected I can be in my classroom with my students, we start to naturally draw upon the connections they're having in other classes, because that will come up. And the more connected each classroom is, it seems like the more connected we are with the counseling administration, just naturally, because we'll be saying things about them that we know about them that will make it, will facilitate well, let me put it another way. If somehow what we do in a classroom becomes, or in our classrooms at school and in the counseling center and the administration, becomes dinner table conversation in a positive way, of course, but it becomes dinner table conversations when they're using our names, not just, oh, my teacher, but instead they're saying Mr. Johnson or whatever, then I believe we are connecting with the community as well. We're connecting with our families when the parents know us by name because of some of the connections we've made. So I think that the more we connect, in the more places we connect in the school, just the more natural it is that we're connected better with the community as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Ashley.
I want, like, I mean, they took everything. I was like, and now I want to say the same thing, but I will say the only thing that was different, because they're both just really powerful, from the counselor's perspective, is what I hear from both, which is essential. That's why I love this webinar with the panelists, is the power of we. Like, just the power of we in every single thing that we do, regardless if it's teaching, regardless if it's PTO events, regardless if it's clubs and organization, it's the power of we. Like, we are trying to reach a goal. And so when, as a teacher, and like I said, I see a lot of my teachers, it's, you know, with me and them trying to establish trust, right? And trying to understand each other, because there's always going to be sometimes friction. That's why I said it's the most powerful thing when you start to build a relationship, right? We kicking off the school year, we get excited. And then I already know, Jamilah knows, like, when it starts to get that September, October, and especially because things are up in the air with COVID and all types of things, and, you know, the rigor starts to come into play, it's sometimes hard because sometimes when we dislike situations or we don't understand situations, we see teacher and student relationships break up. We see staff to staff relationships break up. We see staff to parents relationships break up. But if we keep in mind the mission and however you do that through your staff development, through quotes, morning announcements, through your counseling program, through your principals, through your APs, or even the sunshines on your grade level, when you start to say, we, how can I help? Let's do this together. You kind of lift that load, you lift that burden. And I really believe that, especially with parents, like this year, having conferences and communication is the key. I love, just piggying on the principal parent conversation that Jamilah had. I'm really big at my campus with my principal that, when we have a student concern, that we meet with the parent, the administrative team, the teachers, sometimes even the camp teachers, as well as the student. Why? Because the student, obviously we take care of the business first, right? Managerial, but at the end, we all have to decide as an outcome. When we move forward out of this room, what are we all gonna do to help who? Which is the first priority, the student, right? That's our client, and they are entitled to that. And so students, when they're able to see that we're all on the same page, no matter what, we may not like each other, we may sometimes disagree, then we're able to move forward. And then piggying back on with teachers, and my role as a school counselor is to empower them to know that sometimes you're going to have your rough moments. And sometimes, like, going back to what Jamilah said, you may have some baggage that you're going through and it may be rough, but know and understand that it is okay as a professional educator that you are still human and you will have those rough bumps. But in education, we need to work and collaborate together. So it's okay to maybe let somebody else take the lead a little bit. It's okay to get those ideas. We have to share. That's how we thrive. So I just feel like, the school year will go, I know it will go a lot smoother when it's established and ingrained that it's not about me, it's about us, right? And we only have one mission, one goal, one purpose.
And that's, Chris, if I can, and that's a powerful point about the we. One of the Kwanzaa principles in celebration of Kwanzaa is Ujima, and it's collective work and responsibility. The whole premise is, we have to build and maintain that we problem solve together, right? It goes back to the village mentality. It takes a village to raise a child. One of the things that we do, even as a district, we have circle support teams. So every month or often, we come around the table as the administrators, the school psychologist, social worker, DES chair, special education chair, early intervention program teacher, counselor, social worker, and we talk about those issues and what those needs are for the families. And so if you are a school and you're trying to figure out how can I collectively do it, it may start off with a team, or a team of teachers, and you all started having those conversations about what are the needs of our students, our behavior specialists around the table. How do we have those conversations? Who needs the help? And then is it a student issue or is it a school issue? Because oftentimes you find that it's not an individual student issue. It's a school issue, or it's a demographic issue, or it's an area of the community issue. And you just start looking at those things. But when you come collectively, because the thing is, we're better together, right? I can't think of everything, but imagine if it was a bunch of Chris's and Ashley's and Chris's around the table all the time having these same conversations. How much richer our schools would be and how much more supportive, because we're collectively, and we're not saying, oh, that's just her problem in her class, like, right? That's not in my grade level. No, it's all of our problems. So we all need to have that conversation. So I really liked Ashley's point about the we, and that's a really powerful point.
Thank you so much. I agree with that. And I couldn't help but think it's one of those things, as educators, we believe in the concept of assessment. Like, we use it with our kids. It has the same power for us as well. Like, we can apply assessment to how we're doing things individually and organizationally, and use that, gather feedback to try to improve our overall delivery. So this is great. All right, I want to jump in now to some strategies. I want to hear some strategies from you all. Tell us about some specific ideas or strategies that you have for how educators can create more connected schools or classrooms. Let's go Chris, then Ashley, then Jamilah.
Okay, I'll share, but I know that these are really specific to classrooms and also my personality type. And realistically, the things I do probably wouldn't work for somebody else. They'll work for the goofy me and the serious me. They work for me. But I think maybe sharing some of these things that I do to try to be unique, playful, and inspiring. That might be, I've always, when I've watched other teachers, I can't do what they do, but I can take what they do and maybe manipulate it a little bit. But I do feel that for most students in my class, they probably feel connected at some point. It might take a couple of weeks to believe it, but something that's comfortable and enjoyable is what it needs to be for both teacher and students. So some examples, we do clap for any reason. If somebody comes into my classroom after class starts, they've come late, better late than never. We're clapping like they're a rock star. We can even call out their name. It's brief, but it's fast, but we're always going to do it. No one's left out. We always clap. If they have to go to the restroom, we clap. If they're getting a drink, we clap. If they're getting their braces off, we clap. We clap for any reason. If it's a counselor or administrator, we've clapped for them. When they go visit that counselor or administrator, they'll probably say, hey, I clapped for you today. If they end up, there or whatever. And it's part of being connected. There's something team-like, and it happened by accident in a marketing class once. And I realized when it's genuine, and I have to introduce it the right way, but if it is, it does something. There's some connectiveness. It just naturally builds into the class once they get used to it. Comeback sayings, being a teacher, realizing there's a lot of times students are trying to get you, maybe being a little bit mean, trying to get out of something. I've come up with many comeback sayings that I can say with a smile that will sometimes alleviate that. For example, if a student says, Mr. Edie, you are so mean, I would look at him with a smile and say, well, at least I'm consistent. And usually they would look back and smile too, and everybody else smiles, and we kind of move on, and it didn't happen, nothing happened. It worked. And I've got probably a couple hundred of those because like if someone has to go to the restroom, I respond in a way that I want them to smile when they leave and when they come back. And of course, we're clapping for them too. I have novelty items, that little simple things that like maybe that why they'd want to visit with a friend for a minute between classes to see what's going on today or something ahead of time. Like an illusion rug, they can take a picture of where it looks like they're standing above in the air. I like to ask funny questions when they're grading. I tell them I like to ask all kinds of questions when I grade work of yours. So just expect that, and you don't have to answer them all. And I'll ask them, did they tell their mom they loved them this morning before they left for school? Did they take their vitamins? Did they get good sleep last night? And I always say I'm just trying to grade the whole student. But I do it with a smile, so they don't even have to answer, but it's just for fun. I have a stamp with my name. I ask them where they want me to stamp it, and I get some, usually hands, but sometimes foreheads, earlobes, back of neck, lip, crazy things. I have these little themed ducks. This is a little surf duck, but I give ducks out for rewards. There's all the seasons, all the, just funny things. But when a student walks into my class, a video is playing that will hopefully make them smile and just continue to play over and over. And then I tell them a story from my life that I feel is memorable and might be useful for what we're going to do every day in every class. It's interesting that years later, students will tell me all kinds of stories that I've told to them, that what they remember, the videos, the stories, and also I can tell that they have a pretty good working knowledge of business because of some of the questions they ask me. So just kind of like the camp out, I try to make it unique so that hopefully they remember the other, maybe the real learning is insignificant to them, but somehow it sticks too, I'm finding, and through trial and error. And so, sorry for giving you so much, but you asked for strategies. It's all about connection because the learning can just so easily happen if I'm connected. So I try to give that first.
I love it. Right now, I think you're getting people virtually clapping for you right now, Chris. Great insight.
Yes.
Ashley, let's go to you next.
Well, there's tons of strategies, and I'm just like Chris. So I am Counselor DJ Ashbash. I am big personality on my campus, so I'm always moving and grooving and making everyone laugh, including my principal. And so Again, I would say just one of the strategies, just be present and have fun. It's nothing to give a smile. And I don't know if many of the campuses on here, I know that, my campus is not titled, though we're very close. But sometimes, like if you have a campus that has, I was just thinking while Chris was speaking, monolingual and bilingual, like it's okay to reach out across grade levels, across languages. Sometimes we, even if it is just a monolingual campus, just kind of stay in our zone, in our classroom, like I'm the fun classroom. But if we show more of a collaborative effort to meet everyone social and emotional, like staff speaking to staff, you're speaking to kids across grade levels, you're really getting to know it. Maybe it's a wink or a head nod or something. It really makes, the students feel like, wow, I don't know that teacher, Mr. E, but he always smiles at me like every day. And I'm going to look at him wherever I go. Like I'm going to know that he sees me, right? Because it's the power of presence. I know, for example, another strategy, like with morning announcements that we run, everybody's involved, especially on the admin team, from our principals to the APs, to the counselor here at Bradley. Like we really, really try to be present. So kids know their APs, they know their principal, they know the counselor, they know each of our roles, and we'll have jokes of the day and we'll say good quotes and just words of, encouragement. And I think that that's powerful, right? Because it's not just seeing like the principal or the APs like in this disciplinary role, like they're, the big people. It's more like, hey, it's safe. I want you to just have fun today. And there are some things, some techniques and some strategies that I also give to my administration team to help me out. I would say even another strategy, if there's some school counselors here, is that, when you're giving, your counseling, your instructional lessons, having the teachers participate, having the teachers in there so the kids feel the relevance of like, wow, this is important. So there's a connection between what I'm, giving as far as instruction, but my teacher's backing it as well because she supports it too. And she wants us to connect, right? So, that's one strategy. And then one, last but not least, well, two things. One thing we're trying new this year, we're going to be doing like coffee administration talks. We always keep our offices open, but we really plan to have like a time at least once a month where we're just stationary in the lounge, and it's a really relaxed environment. And we just, hey, you want to come talk to us about whatever you want to talk to us about? It could be a question. It could just be like, hey, how's it going? How's your week been? And my AP came up with this idea, and I thought it was really powerful because there again, that's building the relationships with the staff, establishing the trust, right? And that's that maintaining and sustaining piece. And then last but not least, with your parents, right? Because they are our most prized possessions and they have our students. When issues arise, right? Because we're excited and we're having all of these fun activities, but sometimes when things happen, and we have to maybe pivot, not panic, we want to make sure that we empathize with our parents and connect with them socially so that they can feel safe, respected, and valued. We may not agree, and sometimes you may need help with that. So I would challenge all of us, right, as principals, counselors, to just connect and make sure that when we're having conversations with parents, regarding an issue, to let them know, I hear you, I see you. How can I help? How can we move forward? Let's not, do the blame game. Everybody has been through so much within the past year. We all know that. So when we all know that in our personal lives and here in our professional lives, we just need to make sure that we're still human. And that includes seeing that unlimited potential in every single individual that we encounter. And no, I'll state this, right? Because I'm looking at the chat. We are not perfect. We are bound to make mistakes, but it's just what you do when you get back up and when you, how you move forward.
So good, Ashley. Thank you so much. Jamilah.
Yes, so this is a great question. So some of the things from starting at the top, the leadership, again, modeling what you expect. I know that last year, it was super important for me to stay connected with my staff since we were virtual. So we did things such as, first of all, we did SEL check-ins with our students every day, right? And we did SEL lessons and checking in and before the end of the day. And for my staff, I did a check-in every week. You know, we had every Monday minutes, there's a SEL form, there's a Google form, and they can check in with me. How's your week going? How was your week last week? And if anyone indicated that they didn't have such a great week, I called them. You know, they got individual calls for me. So I could check in. I did the same thing for my parents. You can go on my website now, there's a Google form there. If you did check in with us, how are you doing? What are some of your needs? What are you struggling with? And you'd be surprised some of the things that parents were struggling with. We also made sure that we were taking care of our staff in terms of, you know, doing virtual yoga or a cooking, you know, class, or having wellness Wednesdays where we just come on for like 10 minutes, not a regular faculty meeting, just to check in. Those who want to come, make it optional. We can do some meditation, some yoga. And then, you know, I share with my staff my struggles at one point during the year, because we did lose a staff member, not to COVID, but during that time, and we were virtual, and we had lost, there were several losses within that time frame for like about a month, like every 2 weeks, we had a few losses. And some were just, you know, for different reasons. And at a point, as a leader trying to put the oxygen mask on everyone else, I wasn't putting on myself. So I share with them how I picked up, you know, the Miracle Morning book, for example, and I started doing those morning practices, the savers. And then I end up connecting with the Miracle Morning community, and then they sent books to every teacher in my building. And so that helped with changing the mindset, right? So one of the things is, you know, promoting a growth mindset. So pouring into your staff, modeling what that looks like so they can in turn do it for their students, whether it's through professional learning, through books, through choice, whatever that may be, and then developing those relationships, promoting student agency. You know, do students set goals? Do we set goals? One of the things that we did this year, I made every grade level department pick their theme song and an affirmation for the year. And we opened up the school that way, and we kind of played it. You know, the chairs got with their teams, and we played it during pre-planning. And we're going to play those songs throughout the year and then share those with the students, because I want them to affirm themselves in each other as well. And then part of reimagining, they had to come up with a 2-minute video. What does it look like to reimagine Fountain? We played a little clip of Wakanda. You know, imagine what the students of Wakanda, what kind of schools they have. If Wakanda looks like this, what does school look like? What does it look like for Fountain? You know, so we did those types of things. And the same thing, you know, creating relevance in our lessons. Again, you know, we have to make sure that students understand why they're learning what they're learning. We can no longer just say, do this because this is what the teacher says to do. None of us as adults want to go anywhere or do anything if we don't know why. If you tell me to come into this room, I want to know why you're having me come into this room. It shouldn't be any different for students, right? And to think about, you know, that your favorite restaurant, what makes it so special? Was it the service? Was it the ambiance in the environment? Would you go back to it if it was dirty and you had things on the floor, or the people were mean, or they weren't responsive to your needs? So as adults, we often ask, or we want certain things, and we should do the same thing for our scholars, who are our consumer, our customers. And so we change that lens that these are our customers and that we want to engage them. And I'm not saying you're going to engage them 100% of the time all day, but we should be intentional about trying to create those joyful moments, as Chris talks about. What about those joyful moments, right? That if we're intentional about saying it may not work, and then failing, I might fail, but you know what? I'm going to support you. And because failing means I'm going to learn from it. I have to have some failure. Like Esther said, we're not 100% perfect. The question becomes, what do you do with that failure? And do we have a culture and climate that supports failure? Because the truth of the matter is, we can't tell students you're going to succeed all the time. But what we tell them is, when you fail, then you get up and you try again. That's how you treat that, you know, teach students to have that sense of accountability to themselves and really be true learners and authentic to themselves. So we really want to do those things. So all of those things for me, you know, building in community. You know, if I have a need for students, for example, we gave out every week 150 weekend bags to students who needed, you know, meals over the weekend. And so we gave them out on Thursday, so they would have them on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and come back and do it all over again. You know, you find ways and you eliminate barriers, right? If I have a need, if I can't do it, I'm going to find someone. This year we get to have a food pantry so that we can feed those families who need, you know, additional food. So you just try to find ways that you can really eliminate the barriers that keep our students and families from being successful. So those are just some things that I can think off the top of my head that we're doing. And then continuously, that's sustaining. I think we talked about that. Sustaining means not just doing it during pre-planning, not just doing the beginning of the year, we know as educators, those time of years where it kind of gets a little murky, we're like kind of tired. Teachers are getting a little drained. You might have to go out around with the whoop whoop cart, bring out the snacks. You might have to do a little faculty meeting where you say, you know what, we're not going to have a real faculty meeting. Let's go outside and run around the building. I don't know, whatever you decide to do, let's throw some glitter in the air. But you have to be able to read your community. You have to be able to read your families, your students, and your staff. And when you know that, and when you're present, you can read and know when you need to pivot or when you need to kind of not have that regular faculty meeting today. Like today, we're not going to do that. Today, let's do some meditate. Let's just share, or let's flip the meeting better than yet. You don't have to come. I'm going to record a video and you can watch it and still multitask and do things in your classroom. So when people know you care, I think you build more connectedness, right? When they know that you are listening to them, that you're present, and that you truly believe and want the best for them, people feel connected. That's why you have people who return to your organization year after year, because they know that the grass is not green on the other side, and they know that their needs are met. So when I have a teacher or a staff member who has a child that's sick, or they want to attend in the middle of the day their child's assembly, and you let them do that, that's showing connectedness, because you know what? You value my family, which means I'm loyal to you and I'm loyal to this organization because you allow me to still not have to choose and sacrifice my family or who I am for what I'm doing every day for students. Because we have to remember, we give a lot to our schools and sometimes we sacrifice our families. And so we have to, as leaders, be mindful of that. And if we have those inner struggles, that means our staff may be having those inner struggles. So for me, it's just, those are my top 5, 6.
Thank you so much. I'm over here like cheering. I'm trying not to jump out of my seat. I'm like pumping my fists. All right, just real quick for everybody's information, we're probably going to go, panelists, are you okay if we go about 10 minutes over? This information's too good, and we've got some people that are really, really appreciative of it. 2 questions, Jamilah, came up. One, where can they pick up that miracle book you referenced? What was the book title for that?
It's Miracle Mornings. It's by Hal Elrod. And there's also one, The Miracle Morning for Parents and Families. So, and this is not my book, but I will say Hal Elrod and Brianna Greenspan is really just an amazing person, and had Hal donate those books to us because one of the things that we do is what they call charms, and they're savers. It stands for silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. For the charms, we started doing this spring, and it stands for creativity, health, affirmations, reading, meditation, and service. And so we started doing those things with our students, and we're going to continue that this year so that our students also, their cups are filled as well. And so we felt like, our teachers need that in order for their cups to be filled. And then, it's optional, and here's a book for you that you get to keep, not that you have to turn in at the end of the year. So The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Thank
you so much. And then the other question I have, if you're willing to share, because this is basically you just described my favorite activity I do, maybe in my whole life. Are you willing to share what theme song you picked for yourself?
Okay, so it's not, okay, so for my team.
You don't have to share it if you're not ready.
No, I can share it. Just know I did the clean version though. But it's the Jay-Z and Kanye click. And nobody fresher than my clique for my team, because nobody's fresher than my clique, than my crew, than my team. So that was
I'm so excited that you picked that song. I've never been happier about a
Mark
question.
Knows about that song.
It's a great song. All right, here's what I want to do. I'm going to sneak in one last question before we wrap up. We're going to go about 10 minutes over, but this is really, really important stuff. I know we have some people on here that love what they're hearing, and they're saying to themselves, this is great, but I don't feel like I have the support around me right now to do this to the extent that it's being described. You're all exceptional educators. Just, if you don't mind abbreviating your answer to like under 2 minutes, what advice would you give to somebody that loves this, doesn't know where to start, and doesn't necessarily know if they have the support they need? Let's go Ashley, Jamilah, and then Chris.
Obviously, sometimes that's going to happen, right? And I think I sprinkled a little bit of it before, but one of the most important things I would say that it starts with you. You are light. Light always outshines darkness. no matter what. If you take a look at just life and history of our society, of even America in itself, right, with all the chaos that has gone on, nothing has just been prolonged. We have gotten out of every single thing because it only took a few seeds that were planted, right, to expose the light. So I would tell you, stick to your passion. You know that your why, and find your cheerleaders, connect with someone. And maybe on your campus, maybe someone here that's, watching right now, you may feel like there's no one, like everyone's just like, I've tried this, I've tried that. I would tell you to keep pushing, right? Because the focus is the student. You just need to plant the seeds. It may be for somebody else to water, right? You just need to do that, and it will shine. It will shine.
Thank you. Jamilah.
Yeah, so as a teacher, I would always say start with your own classroom, right? We had a conversation before. We all have been in those situations where, the students are one way in your class and maybe the same student different way in another teacher's class, and you don't have maybe some of those issues that the other teacher does, and a lot of that has to do with the relationships. And so, really, being in your improving your craft, improving who you are, working on you. Let me say that first. Work on you personally first, right? Because you can't pour into others what you don't have in you, because what you believe about yourself is how you're going to show up. So work on you, work on your classroom, what you have control over. And if you're a teacher, find those people in your building who have common interests or vision about students, about relationships. Start there. One of the things that sometimes leaders will do is have this book study and make everybody do it and say you got to do it. And then sometimes you might say, you know what, I'm going to give several books, or you suggest a book. It should be aligned with this vision, and then you all create a group and you all do it, and then you all report back to us. And sometimes given that choice. So I would say start with you, and start with your gallon-sized people, as Oprah calls it. Find your gallon-sized people who have like-minded, ideas or the desire to do similar things as you. And if you are a school leader, same thing. Work on yourself, and then model what you expect. Be very clear about your expectations. Very clear about how you expect relationships to foster in your building. That may look different from classroom to classroom. Not every class is going to have a Chris, and not every school is going to have an Ashley, and everyone's not hunky-dory and touchy-feely. But it doesn't mean they can't build relationships. And students know that. They know the teachers who are not touchy-feely, and they may be, very strict, but they know that they care. Why? Because even when I fail, they give me another opportunity to make it up, or they eliminate barriers, or they make me come to at lunchtime and bring my lunch, and we're going to do the work together. And that may be seen being mean, but they also know that teacher cares. And then even as a leader, find other leaders in your district or in your community that you can keep in contact with, and that you can build different programs or ideas off of, so that you might want to try some different things, and then reach out to some of those community members that are directly around your school. Sometimes we want the partners that other schools have, and that partner may not be for you. And so find those local and invite them, like your local ministry association. We don't really tap into those sometimes, right? Because they see our families on the weekends. So tap into those ministry associations that are near your school, where you can tap in and find out how you can combine those resources. So those are some things that I can think off the top of my head that can really work. But if I were to give my number one, would be work on you.
Great insight. And for those that are asking, yes, this is being recorded, and we're going to put email addresses up of our panelists in just a little bit in case you want to get a hold of them. Chris, give us any thoughts you have on where a person can start if they don't know where to start or don't feel like they have the support around them that they wish they did. You're on mute, Chris.
When I ask my students how many of them feel they're outgoing, only about 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 students raise their hand. So most of us feel we're shy to somewhat shy. I'm actually very much a shy person. Maybe my goofiness is, I'm a shy extrovert now because I have to be. But I decided, when I realized that when I was in high school, and I decided then that I couldn't be better at being anyone else. I'd rather be my best me. And I found much greater happiness and a better me by being myself. And I feel that the classroom needs to be a place for me now to continue to be myself, and for my students to be themselves. And so knowing that, I asked my question years ago, what seems to make me smile in a classroom setting? And I realized that I would tell some stories sometimes to my DECA students on trips. And I realized how much we connected with that. So I started thinking about just life's experiences and ended up with Post-its, turned into a semester's worth, ended up being a whole year's worth, and then a semester's and a whole year's class worth of stories that still kind of circulate in and out, that have meaning, and they're memorable and they're useful and they're just me. But sharing me has dropped the comfort zones for students. I noticed they feel like they can share them. And I'm not talking about inappropriate sharing. I'm talking about like useful, helpful things. Also, I found that the students, when they're trying to be playful, work with it. That's why I now have a child's training potty in my classroom. And you might wonder why. I teach high school, but it was working off of some things that happened in class that students donated it to my classroom as kind of another novelty piece, and it actually an actual flusher, and it hasn't ever been used, but we joke about it, and it's something that they ask about and we can talk about, and they can tell that I want to work off the things that they do. Something that I think helps is participate in assemblies and school events where possible. I actually teach my students sound so I can find them in a crowd or call out to them in a crowd. And my one is and the other one woo, and they'll say it back and in a crowd, so we can. It's, you know, I talk to my students in the hall, even if it's just grief. I'm like, I have to run. I have a puppy wall. I don't even own a puppy, but I have a puppy wall because I say that puppy to all kinds of things. We have a cough limit, a no bladder rule. We have things that allow connection to happen for our classroom. We all try to wear the same color on certain days, just so it seems strange for people to watch us come out of our class or into that class, just to do something together. But I do have to remind them that I'm the only one that can be a discipline problem in my classroom or an issue. And I do that kind of when I start to sense something. I say, hey, I'm the only one allowed to be a discipline problem in my classroom, and I do it with a smile, and it's helpful. But I think giving them things like those little ducks that are personalized, Valentine wristbands that I can slap on the wrist, those kind of things are really additional ways to do things that fit for me, make me smile, which for some reason, because that's my personality, I can find what makes them smile with it. And I guess I'd finally want to say is, I really do, I figured out that I love all of my students. Even if they don't love me back, I love them. And so I tell them up front, hey, I already know I'm going to love every one of you. I've been teaching long enough to know it. So I'm going to start telling you from day one. And on day one, when I say I love them, a few of them look at me kind of weird, and I'm like, well, not in a weird way. And then then I have to include so I can make them smile, except for you two, you know, and I'll point to them so that they know that I'm going to be saying this, get used to it. Love will be expressed here. And I'm super grateful to be able to be in a situation where I get to meet and know and love, because the business approach is customer oriented. So the school approach has to be student oriented. Everything's about that student. And if I do all of the things I do, knowing that the relationship I build with that student will make a difference, the learning, once again, it becomes effortless. They don't even realize that they've learned something, but they do well. So obviously they did. So those are way more than you asked for. I apologize.
So, no, those are great. And this is exactly what people want to hear. I love, one of my favorite things about you, Chris, is that you take the business of having fun and being a little bit goofy, you take it appropriately seriously, if that makes sense. And that's a huge compliment, because we need to take it serious. It's important to have fun and bring that in. And I know you mean it when you tell your kids that you love them. All right, here's what I want to do. I'm going to put up contact information here on a slide. I'm also going to type in, a lot of you have talked about the importance of supporting families. I'm putting a link into the chat where we have a parent guide to resilience that connects to our SEL model. Anybody on this webinar is more than welcome to use this parent guide. It is a great resource, and you can use this with your parents. Take a look at that link I just threw in the chat tool. And here's what I want to conclude on. I'm going to give you the choice. We talked about voice and choice, so I'm going to try to practice what we preach. I'm going to give you the choice of what you would like to answer, and I want you to conclude by sharing either a success that you're particularly proud of over the last difficult year, or something that's giving you hope right now. And then in conjunction with that, I want you to tell people how they can get a hold of you. And if you happen to have a best-selling book right now, feel free to mention your book. And if you happen to have a fire Twitter feed right now in Texas that people should be looking at, feel free to mention your Twitter feed. So go ahead and tell us how you would, what you'd like to respond to. Let's go Ashley, let's go Jamilah, then Chris, then Ashley.
Oh, you want to put it back up, Jason?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's on a loop. Sorry about that.
I will say, first of all, this panelist, we rocked. We did this.
Y'all are good.
So exciting. So my Twitter is at Mrs. Wright CIC. I am a school counselor in Conroe ISD. And one thing that I conquered last year in the crazy pandemic is I had a baby, and I am the 2021 Texas School Counselor of the Year for Lone Star School Counselor Association.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that, Ashley.
I was like, had a baby, came back on maternity leave, and yes, and still did it. So that was epic, and this year will be epic. And so my hope is, and one thing that I align with hope is just like, I honestly, I believe in the impossible. I just believe in change. Every new day brings opportunities. So I am empowered just by the endless opportunities of tomorrow, always.
That's
Awesome. Congratulations, by the way. Ashley won a kind of a big deal award. She's incredible.
Oh,
Chris.
I forgot to mention, can I mention one? I forgot, sorry.
Please do.
I think it's off the screen. The Lone Star School Counselor Association is proud to invite all Texas school counselors, even if you're not in Texas. If you want to come down, we are having our conference in November. So we have put the registration link. There's going to be tons of workshops, even all centered also to school connectedness. So we all invite all of our school counselors as well as administrators to attend.
There you go. Chris.
I was just going to say, just because I found ways to connect under difficult circumstances, I feel that maybe we'll be coming out of those. I feel the future is bright, and I'm grateful to realize that connecting can still keep happening regardless of a pandemic or what have you. And that last year was a challenge, though. It was a challenge because it kept wanting me to focus on online curriculum versus the student. And somehow I was able to do both, and I'm super grateful that somehow I found a way, and I felt super supported by good counseling, good administrators like these like Ashley and Jamilah, just so supported by others, and I'm just grateful for all of that.
Amen. Jamilah.
You know, we can probably write down, you know, when the pandemic hit, we didn't know what to expect. And what I do know is that although there were a lot of losses and things that, you know, did not go to our favor, there was so much more that I gained. If nothing else, just learning more about myself as a leader, as a school leader, as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter, a sister. And so I know that I have so much more to be grateful for than not. One of the things that I'm truly grateful for is being able to convince 4 beautiful other school leaders in my district to co-author a book on leading with balance. And it could not have come at a better time last year. We don't consider ourselves to be writers, and we have never written a book before, but they agreed to be on this journey with me to talk about our journey of being women and being mothers and just leading schools and organizations and finding our true selves and strategies in this book, which ended up becoming a #1 Amazon bestseller. So I'm truly, truly grateful and thankful about that. And the greatest gift is when the book came in and I opened it up for the first time, and my 3-year-old daughter, I have 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl, ranging from 27 to 3. Yes, it's a whole nother thing. When she looked at the book and said, "Mommy, that's you." that was the best, without getting emotional, the best feeling ever, because I know that the work that I do is for them. This is it's for them. And so I have to show up for my school and I have to show up for them. And I just want them to know that they have endless possibilities for them, and that whatever that they do, we're here to support them, and that they are in schools that truly supports their dreams and their aspirations. So I'm truly fortunate to have conquered those types of things, as well as other leaders on here, or probably on here, just leading a school through a pandemic. No one's ever done that before. And we made it through, and we were resilient, right? We made it through. So I'm just super grateful and super blessed that this has allowed me to connect to WhyTry and Mark and OSG and being able to have this opportunity. So I'm very grateful and I'm very appreciative. So thank you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Please go check out Jamilah's book on Amazon, Leading with Balance. You can find it there. I'll just conclude. The thing that's given me hope right now, honestly, this is not me trying to be cheesy with the answer. These webinars really give me hope. I feel so fortunate. I started doing these last year in about April, and it was a pretty low moment for a lot of us as professionals. Nobody had a contingency plan for every school in the country closing its doors. And we felt like our connection to our greatest resource, which is all of you, was cut off. And we started doing these webinars, and for the most part, almost every week, I get to connect with some of the most incredible and inspiring humans you can be. I'm going to get emotional talking about it now. So I just want to thank all of you that show up to these as attendees and also as our panelists. I'm going to borrow Mr. Chris Eady's language and just say, I love you all. I appreciate you all. And you all have carried me through this last year, and you continue to give me hope. So let's go ahead and finish this out. Would you be opposed to me playing us out with a little music? Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you all, our attendees, for being on here and showing up. Come back again for our next one. We're going to be talking in the next couple weeks. We're probably going to be doing one of these on some really specific relationship tool that we have as part of our SEL program that we're really excited about. And I'm super excited to be able to share that